The boss, Edgar, a middle manager, ruled his department as he pleased, not with fairness, not with wisdom, but with fear and off-colored jokes. He leered at women, he made inappropriate comments. Worst of all, he knew no other way. He thought he was funny, he thought he was charming, he was very wrong. A strange summons. Dr. Nutty? Nobody called her Dr. Nutty except Edgar, and he only ever called her that in his head when he was fantasizing about tying her up. He'd seen enough porn movies to know how that worked. He reread the note. Workshop? Why there? And what could she possibly want with him? He tried to remember if he'd done anything particularly egregious to her recently. He decided he couldn't remember. It was all a blur, really, these past few months, years even. He shrugged. He'd go see what she wanted, probably nothing important. Inside Audrey's workshop. Dr. Audrey's workshop was in the old storage room. It was dark and cluttered. Strange machines hummed and beeped in the corners. It smelled of ozone and something vaguely metallic. Audrey, small and dark-haired, stood by a large metallic contraption. It looked like an oversized washing machine, only instead of a glass door it had a metal hatch and wires, lots of wires. "You wanted to see me, Audrey?" asked Edgar. He tried to sound casual, but his voice came out a little higher than usual. Audrey turned. She smiled, a small, thin smile. "Ah, Edgar, excellent. Come in, come in." Edgar entered the workshop. He felt uneasy. He didn't like the way Audrey was looking at him, a little nagging feeling, like he was a particularly interesting lab rat. "What's this all about, Audrey?" he asked. He tried to sound casual. He failed. "Oh, just a little experiment," she said. She gestured to the machine. "This is my latest invention. Please step inside." "What does it do?" asked Edgar as she closed, then sealed the door on him. His voice was carried to outside speakers. He already knew he wasn't going to like the answer. "It de-ages people," said Audrey. She smiled again, that same thin smile. Edgar stared at her. "De-ages?" he repeated. Audrey nodded. "Yes," she said, "makes them younger, much younger." Edgar looked from Audrey to the machine all around him and back again. He didn't like where this was going. He didn't like it at all. "And you want me younger?" he asked. His voice was barely a whisper. "Oh yes, Edgar," said Audrey. "I think it's high time you learned some respect for women." The women of the office were initially surprised to see Audrey carrying a mostly naked baby into the office. He was dressed only in a diaper. "Everyone, meet Edgar," Audrey announced, a gleam in her eye. "I know gossip among women has been my machine, makes people younger. Now you can see the result for yourself." The room, usually abuzz with gossip and the clatter of keyboards, fell silent. Then a wave of giggles rippled through the desks. Nobody dared to question Audrey. She had always been an enigma, a quiet genius who kept to herself. But there was a new steeliness in her eyes today. Life as a baby wasn't what Edgar expected. Gone were the days of lewd jokes and unwanted wandering hands. Now his world consisted of cuddles, women using baby talk on him, and the constant threat of a diaper change. The women of the office, once the target of his unwanted attention, were now his eager caretakers. They loved taking turns feeding him, burping him, and changing his diapers. Some women loved to tease about his body and the much reduced size of his manhood. All the while they whispered stories of his past transgressions. Edgar, for the first time in his life, felt a flicker of shame. He understood the words, he understood the looks on their faces. He understood that he had been wrong. He wanted to tell them he was sorry, but all that came out was a string of incoherent gurgles. A fussy baby they rocked back to sleep. Audrey, watching from the sidelines, knew that this was just the beginning. She would keep Edgar in diapers for a few decades. He had a lot to learn about respect, consent, and the power of treating people with kindness. Maybe, just maybe, this was the only way. It would amuse her to see grow into a toddler only to be returned to infancy over and over.